Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to be starting 9.1 today. So we are moving on to the unit where we are going to be graphing quadratics. What I'd like for you to do is go ahead and write down the vocabulary definitions, and then I'm going to go back and add in a little bit of information on these guys, kind of where to find them, what the answers should look like. But for right now, if you'll copy what you see, and we'll meet you back in just a second. All right, so at this point, you should have written down everything that you saw. Let's go ahead and talk about some of these. So first of all, when we write down what a vertex is the highest or lowest point on our parabola. Again, a parabola is the shape of that graph. It's our U or our upside down U, kind of looks like an umbrella. So a vertex would be the very lowest point or the very highest point on our graph. So if A, our very first number, if he's positive, our graph is going to have a minimum. If A is negative and our graph is upside down, that's when we would have a maximum. Either way, when we name a vertex, our answer should look like a point. We're going to label that vertex with an X, Y. Okay? Second set of vocab words you're going to need to know is our axis of symmetry. So axis means a line, and in this case it's a symmetrical line. So it's our line through the parabola that cuts it exactly in half. You can kind of see the dashed line in the picture down here. Cuts the graph perfectly in half, and it happens to go through the vertex. So you'll notice that this line hits the x-axis at 2. Well, that's because our vertex is going to be on that line. So when you write an answer, our equation is going to be x equals some number, and you're always going to have that number already because we're going to be stealing the same x as that vertex. So again, the number that you're using comes right out of that point. Okay. Next set of words is our intercepts. So we're going to have x-intercepts and y-intercepts. X-intercepts are where you cross the x-axis, that would be here and here. Y-intercepts would then be where you cross the y-axis. So let's remember what those points should look like. If you are an x-intercept, that means you have an x number and your y is 0. If you're a y-intercept, it means you have a y number, but your x part is 0. Couple things about where to find them. X-intercepts. Remember, we're not using braces anymore. We're labeling the points. But same as before in the last unit, it is possible that you can have 2 answers, 1 answer, or none at all. If there is ever none at all, like your parabola is just floating up in the top of the graph, that's okay. You can just say none. There are no x-intercepts. Y-intercepts, on the other hand, you have to have one. Even if you can't see it on the graph, you could always go back and find that answer in the table. So again, even if you can't see it, it does cross the y-axis somewhere. Okay? All right, domain. We haven't done domain or range in a while, but domain is lucky. When we're talking about where can the x's go, this arrow goes out forever and out forever, which means we get to use all real numbers every single time for our domain. Again, that double R means all real numbers. For the range, we're talking about our y's. So we're deciding the y can either be greater than or equal to, meaning it's going higher than the vertex, or it can be less than or equal to. It's going lower than the vertex. But either way, the number that we use to compare on this is going to do the same thing. We're going to take the same as the y part in vertex. Okay, so again, you're taking the y right out of this top number up here. If there's anything you missed, take a second, write that down. We're going to do a quick example from the picture, just labeling what you see, and then we'll move on. Okay? All right, so for this graph, if we labeled out our vertex, would be the point 2, -5. That's the lowest point on the graph. Axis of symmetry is an x equals equation, and we steal the number right out of the vertex down here. So x equals 2. X-intercepts are where I cross the x-axis, so that's at -1, 0, and 5, 0. Y-intercept is where I cross the y-axis, so 0, -3. Domain, we're lucky, it's all real numbers all the real time, and our range is y, We take the y number out of our vertex, -5, and then we're going to decide, am I greater than that or less than that? Well, in this case, I'm greater than or equal to because I'm going to be going greater, higher, up than where the vertex is. Okay? Take a second, write those down. I will meet you on the next page. All right, so as we start moving into these, you're going to need your calculator. Your calculator might not be the same as mine, and that's okay. Just make sure you're comfortable using the functions on your calculator. I'm going to be using the inspires on these ones, so if you have Miss Brown as a teacher, these are the ones you're going to want to be using and be comfortable with, okay? All right, our first equation is our parent function. This equation you're going to need to have memorized for every quiz and test for the next 2 units, okay? All right, so here's what we're doing when we go through this process for graphing. First thing is we're going to turn on our calculator. We're going to go down to here and open up a new graph. If there's something open before, you can delete it right now, or you can just leave it where it is. We're going to type in our equation, x squared. You don't have to type the y equals, it's already holding the function. And you're going to press enter. Now, it gives us the graph. We know what it looks like, but we want the actual table values. So we're going to go menu. Go down, we want our table, and we want to just split the screen for right now, okay? Now, we see this point 416. Obviously, that's not going to fit on my graph. My graph only goes up to 9, okay? But we want to scroll up and see if there's any negative values that will fit. And there are, right? -3.9 will fit, but -416 won't. So the first one I write down is going to be -3.9, -2.4, -1.0.0.0. And I want to scroll back down to see what those other ones were. So we had 1.1, 2.4, and 3.9. Those are all of my sets. So getting the table is the first piece of information that you need. That is going to give you the ordered pairs. So once I have that guy, I can go back and graph. -3.9, -2.4, -1.1, 0.0, 1.1, 2.4, 3.9. Now, I'm going through that really quickly, but you can pause it and slow down if you need to. Finally, I can graph my parabola and connect those dots, making sure that my arrow goes all the way to the top past the edge of the graph, okay? All right, so once you have the graph, let's go in and fill out our points. My vertex is going to be this point down here, 0, 0. That vertex is a minimum because he's at the bottom. Axis of symmetry is an equation. It's an x equals, and we're going to steal the x right out of that vertex, so x equals 0. X-intercept is going to be where I cross the x-axis. There's only one place. That point is 0, 0. My y-intercept is going to be where I cross the y-axis. Again, only one location. Happens to be at 0, 0 again. Domain, we get lucky. Same answer all the time, all real numbers. The range is when we steal the y value. So we're going to say y and 0. We are going to be greater than or equal to 0 because our graph is going up from the vertex. Okay? That is your parent function. That's actually going to be one of the problems in your homework. We want to have that answer pretty much memorized. Okay? Let's go on to number 2. So number 2, let's assume that we already did our control up. We've already deleted this page out of our calculator, and we've already made a new one. So I'm going to type that in. We're doing x squared minus 2x minus 3. And I have already written down the table for you on here, so I'll let you copy that. And then we're going to go ahead and graph this guy. So again, take just a second, and we're going to graph the points. When you connect the dots, notice that my graph goes all the way to the top. Even though the dots don't, my parabola goes all the way to the top with the arrows. All right, so we're ready to fill in some of these. Our vertex is down here at the bottom. Our vertex is at 1, -4. That point is a minimum. Axis of symmetry is where we steal our x value. X equals 1. Our x-intercepts are right here on my x-axis. So I'm going to have -1, -1, 0, and +3, 0. My y-intercept is this guy down here on my y-axis. So 0, -3. Domain is always the same answer. And my range is when I steal the y value. So y is greater than or equal to, because it's going up, It's higher than that vertex, number 4. Okay? You'll notice how quick these are going. I'm really just labeling what I see. Okay? Go ahead and write down what you have. We'll meet you on the next page. All right, so we're looking at problem 3 now. I'm going to go ahead and type that in. Negative x squared plus 5x minus 6. Table is already written for you. Remember, if you need to do that, it's menu, table split. And then I'm writing up here how you can remove that table. So let's say I went menu, table, split my screen. To remove it, all I have to do is go menu, table, and remove the table. That's all you have to do to get back. Okay, so let's take just a second. Go ahead and put your dots on here. And we're going to connect those dots all the way to the bottom of my graph. So one of the first things that you should notice is you don't have a highest or a lowest point. These guys right here, they kind of tie for the job of highest, which means neither one of them is my vertex. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the calculator and our menu analyze button to find our maximum. So we're going to go menu. We want to analyze the graph. But this time we're not finding a 0. We're not finding x-intercepts. We're trying to find a vertex. So is our vertex a minimum or a maximum? It's a maximum. I'm going to go ahead and circle that, maximum. When we click it, we're going to do the same thing before. We're just going to click somewhere close to the max, highlight over it, and then click again. And it's going to give me that point. You should be able to see 2.5, comma, 0.25. Remember, the vertex is giving me my axis of symmetry and my range numbers. So we got to get that right to get the next 2. Never guess on those decimals. So axis of symmetry, x equals 2.5. We took this number. X-intercepts, well, that's these guys. They're the ones that were sitting on the x-axis. So we have 2, 0 and 3, 0. Y-intercept is this one down here, 0, negative 6. Domain is always the same, all real numbers. And my range is y and 0.25. Remember, we're stealing this guy. But this time it's a maximum. So we have to use a less than or equal to. We're lower than that vertex. Okay? All right, number 4, we're going to go ahead and skip that one for right now. If you want to try that one, there's no analyze. All the numbers are perfect. The table's up there. If you want it, go ahead. Otherwise, we're going to go to number 5. All right, number 5. Let me delete my graph. Type in my new one. Negative x squared plus 6. Hopefully you're doing the same thing with me. All right, table is already up there. Take just a second and graph your table. And we're going to go ahead and connect our dots. Make sure our arrows go all the way to the bottom. All right, so for this one, you do have the vertex. We can see this highest point up here. So we're going to put our 0, 6. He is a maximum again. Axis of symmetry steals my x number, so x equals 0. Y-intercept is that same point, 0, 6 on the y-axis. Domain is all real numbers. And my range takes the y number, so y is less than or equal to 6. Now, you'll notice that I skipped my x-intercepts. The graph does cross that, but they don't have whole numbers. So if I know that I'm looking for a point somewhere in here and somewhere in here, I'm going to have to use my calculator to figure that out. Okay, we're going to go menu, analyze my graph. But this time we don't want the vertex. We don't want min or max. We want the x-intercepts. We called that zeros before, finding the same thing. So first 0 is going to be over here. Click, trace, click again. There's my first number. I'm going to write that down. So negative 2.45, comma 0. And then I have another one. So menu, analyze 0. Click near it, trace it, click again. It's the same number, but this time it's positive 2.45, comma 0. So same numbers, one's positive and one's negative. Okay, so analyze the graph whenever you can't see the vertex or if you can't see the x-intercepts. Okay, all right, we're going to do one more of these and then call it a day. So number 6, take a second while you graph that while I delete these. All right, so if we graph with our table, we are way up here. Our graph should look like it's floating up on the top. So we can see our vertex. 0, 5 is our point up top. That's this guy. He's a minimum because the graph is facing upward again. Axis of symmetry, we steal our x number, x equals 0. But this time our x-intercepts, we don't have to highlight anything. We just say none, there aren't. There are no x-intercepts. We still have a y-intercept, 0, 5. We still have a domain, and we still have our range. We're back to greater than or equal to 5 because we are going higher than the vertex. Okay? That is all of your notes for 9.1. Remember, come see me if you have any trouble with the calculator or if you have a different form of the calculator. You might need to look into how to get those problems. Okay? Good luck.